Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be back with you to support the class of 2023 through our Alabama Goes to College campaign. Really can't believe that this year is already here and that we're in the 2022-2023 school year, but here we are. If you don't know me yet, my name is May Whiting. I am the Data and Research Manager at Alabama Possible, and I will be leading today's professional development webinar. So in this kickoff webinar, we're going to be giving a high-level overview of the Alabama Goes to College campaign and really touching on all of the ways that you can use this campaign to support your students as they pursue post-secondary pathways. We would like to recognize and thank our sponsors for supporting this work and making this webinar possible. The Alabama Goes to College campaign also works really closely with several partners to implement the initiatives that we're going to discuss today. So we want to say a big thank you to our great partners that you see here. So a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Please keep your microphones on mute at all times to avoid any feedback during the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/AlabamaPossible. And that's just so that you can revisit any of this content at your convenience. Throughout the webinar, you can submit questions using our chat feature. We will be collecting those questions throughout the webinar and then answering them towards the end of the presentation. And then one thing that's a little bit new this year, so I definitely want to highlight it. We will have some poll questions throughout the webinar, and these are designed to get your real-time feedback. So we would love it if everyone would participate in the poll questions, but this part is especially important. If you are a high school educator, you will need to participate in all of the poll questions to receive your professional development credit. So the questions are super quick, nothing too long or drawn out, and they won't take up much of your time, but we're hoping that by you completing the poll questions during the webinar, it will lessen the burden of you having to complete any follow-up surveys after our webinar. So a few more things before we dive into the content. Please share your commitment to building a college-going culture on social media. You can find us at AL Goes to College, and you can find the State Department of Education at Alabama Achieves. And then also feel free to use any of the hashtags that you see here so that we can see the great work that you're doing and we can share some of the work that you're doing. You might have seen if you received our newsletter earlier this morning that we frequently have social media raffle opportunities. So if you tag us in your post, you will be entered into a raffle to win a gift card that can go towards any of your college planning activities. So our first raffle that we have going on is for Why Apply Day. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in today's presentation. But I want to start off with our first poll question. Just want to get a feel for who all is in the room with us today. Let me go ahead and launch that. All right, so you should see a poll on your screen. We largely have folks from the K-12 setting, mostly K-12 counselors, but we definitely have some representatives from community-based organizations, government agencies, post-secondary institutions, and then of course our lovely folks in K-12 in admin roles or our career coaches. So thank you for answering that. All right, so before we get into the main content, and if you logged on a little bit late, we want to put a quick reminder here that you can still register your high school by visiting alabamapossible.org/register 2022-23. And it has a way for you to check whether or not your school has already registered, because we do only need one submission from each high school. So now I'll turn to our learning objectives for today's training. By the end of this webinar, we hope to deepen familiarity with the Alabama Goes to College campaign and its main components. We also hope to gain confidence with navigating and using the Alabama Goes to College Educators Toolkit. And then we hope to identify one new strategy and asset that you will use to increase awareness for your college and career initiatives. And all of that in service of promoting post-secondary pathways to your students. So as many of you know, there are three main components of the Alabama Goes to College campaign. Cash for College. The goal of Cash for College is for every graduating senior to complete the free application for federal student aid, or Fafsa, before they graduate from high school so that they can access federal, state, and institutional aid to pay for their education after high school. Alabama College Application Week is part of a national effort to increase the number of first-generation college students and students from low-income families pursuing a college degree or other higher education credential. And the primary purpose of this effort is to help high school seniors navigate the college application and admissions process, and to ensure that they're all applying to at least one post-secondary institution. And then lastly, we have College and Career Decision Day. This day celebrates students that they're committing to pursue their education past high school. So that's whether they're doing it to obtain a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, a certificate or industry recognized credential, or they're entering the military or pursuing a skilled trade. So we're gonna start off really exploring Cash for College a bit more. Cash for College, it builds awareness around financial aid for post-secondary education. Again, the goal is for every graduating senior to complete their FAFSA before they graduate high school. And we really prioritize completing the FAFSA because it strongly correlates with so many positive post-secondary outcomes. And that includes things like increases in college enrollment, in persistence, and in attainment. A lot of y'all have heard us say that research shows 92% of students who complete the FAFSA enroll in college the following fall. And that's compared to just 51% of FAFSA non-completers enrolling in college the following fall. So FAFSA is hugely important. And as many of you know, every senior in Alabama should either be completing the FAFSA or an opt-out waiver as part of their graduation checklist. So we highly encourage every senior who's eligible to complete the application actually do so, whether or not they think their income is too high to qualify, whatever their circumstances might be. And there are several reasons that we encourage every single student to complete the FAFSA. One of those reasons is that the FAFSA is not only used to determine need-based federal aid. Most colleges, universities, or even private scholarship organizations will require FAFSA information in order to determine scholarship awards as well. So regardless of a student's family income, they should be completing a FAFSA. Now, there are some students who are not eligible to complete this application. This mostly applies to undocumented students who have no protected status. We're going to talk a lot more about that in future webinars, but just wanted to mention here that you should feel free to refer those students to us at any point during the school year so we can talk about their next steps as it relates to applying to college, applying for financial aid, and whether their next steps involve completing an opt-out waiver or not. So just wanted to mention that here. I do want to recognize that all of our returning counselors and career coaches did an absolutely outstanding job promoting the FAFSA last academic year. Alabama ranked top 10 in the nation for overall FAFSA completion and is currently sitting in second place in the nation for year-over-year improvement in FAFSA completion. So a few key resources that we want to highlight for this component. The AIC FAFSA completion portal is a platform hosted by the Alabama Commission on Higher Education. And if you are a high school educator, this platform is going to become your best friend starting October 1st when the FAFSA cycle begins. So once you have login credentials to the platform, you're able to track student level FAFSA completion progress. And this portal is updated daily. So it's a super great way of monitoring which student needs to do what as it relates to the FAFSA. And then I have also linked both the portal here and a guide that we created to help you navigate the portal. Next, we have the Cash for College data dashboard. This platform is for you to check school-wide FAFSA completion progress. This is updated weekly, and it's especially useful for schools that do not have access to AIC's platform. The data dashboard will give you an easy way to compare schools and also to compare districts. So I've linked that platform as well as a handy FAQ. And then lastly, we have fafsa.gov. Its web pages will provide super detailed information on almost every situation you can think of, from a super simple FAFSA to extremely complex FAFSAs. They also have great flyers and one-pagers that outline the process and all of the steps involved. So now we'll take a look at some of our key dates for this component. I first want to note that the My Student Aid app has been retired and is no longer in use. So if your students prefer doing their FAFSA on their phone, they can still visit studentaid.gov or fafsa.gov to complete their application, but they're going to have to do the application through their phone's web browser because they'll no longer be able to access the app version of the application. All right, so those key dates. October 1st is when the FAFSA opens, and it opens every year on that date. It's really important for students to know that they're not just completing their FAFSA once, they're completing their FAFSA every single year that they're going to be in college. So every October 1, they should be making a note to start their FAFSA. December 1st is our deadline for Alabama schools to compete for the Best Hustle Award. And that award is for improving early FAFSA completion. So this is awarded to schools who have at least a 10% improvement in FAFSA completion when comparing the first 2 months of the FAFSA cycle this year to the first 2 months of the FAFSA cycle last year. And then we have May 1st. This is our deadline for Alabama schools to compete for the Most Improved and MVP awards. And those awards come with a grant prize. So the Most Improved Award is given to schools with the highest year-to-year improvement rate for FAFSA completion. And then the MVP award is given to schools with the highest overall FAFSA completion. And in order to be eligible for these awards, you have to be registered for our Alabama Goes to College campaign by our October 1st deadline. So if you haven't registered yet, be sure to do that. All right, so our next component is Alabama College Application Week. And again, the goal of this component is to ensure high school seniors are applying to at least one post-secondary institution, and that they're doing that through our assistance and encouragement to them as they navigate the college application process. We encourage all high school students to apply to college early in their senior year. And we do this through an initiative that's a week long, where participating colleges and universities will actually waive their application fees for Alabama students. So we have the dates coming up for that. We'll let you know when that is. But this is part of a national campaign. And we are lucky that the Alabama State Department of Education really leads this work in the state of Alabama. So in terms of resources, we have a site coordinator manual that will be released sometime in September, and we'll let you know when that's ready, but it will serve as your main guide for everything related to this component. And then we also have linked here as a key resource, the national campaign website. It has a lot of great ideas and resources for you to download. So the key dates for this component, we have our first event on September 16th. So fast approaching, we have Why Apply Day. If you're not familiar with Why Apply Day, this is a day where you as educators can wear your college gear and you can share with students why you believe they should apply to college. So you can share yourself why you applied to college, what you got from that experience, and how it led you to where you are today. So we'll definitely be talking a lot more about this in the coming weeks, especially in our newsletter and on our social media. Then October 17th through the 21st is Alabama College Application Week. Again, this is a full week where colleges in and around the state of Alabama will waive their application fees for Alabama seniors. And we're very excited to announce that 55 colleges and universities have already committed to participate in this year's application week. So be on the lookout for more information in our newsletter. I know some of you will ask if we already have a spreadsheet available. We don't yet, but we will have that for you closer to the date. But know that we already have a bunch of colleges and universities lined up for that. And then our last component is College and Career Decision Day. And this, of course, is to celebrate students committing to pursue education and training after high school. Lots of our resources for this come from Reach Higher and Better Make Room. If you haven't heard of these, Reach Higher started as an initiative of former First Lady Michelle Obama, and it really focuses on counselors supporting students in their goal of completing education past high school. So Reach Higher then launched Better Make Room, and this is more of a student-facing campaign. It includes events like College Signing Day, which you might be familiar with. But overall, College and Career Decision Day events take place on May 1st or anytime really during the month of May. And we'll definitely spend a lot more time talking about this component of the campaign in the second half of the year, but wanted to at least preview it with you today. Okay, so now that we've reviewed each campaign component, I would like to do a demo of our Educators Toolkit. This is a Google Drive full of resources that are designed to support you through each campaign initiative. So throughout the year, we'll be hosting webinars that cover each of the campaign components. And as we host those webinars for each of the big events, we will dig deep into the Educators Toolkit, showing you helpful tools and resources, but we wanted to at least preview it with you today. You're, of course, more than welcome to start looking through it yourself. We'll have a link available to you in the chat, but we'll go ahead and do that demo right now. Okay, so hopefully you can see the Google Drive. You can access the toolkit directly by going to alabamapossible.org/educator-toolkit. Like I mentioned, the toolkit is housed on Google Drive, and it includes all kinds of assets and templates that you can use. So there are general assets, and then we also have assets related to each of the campaign components. So Cash for College, Alabama College Application Week, and College and Career Decision Day. If you have trouble accessing the drive, we've encountered this a few times. It's likely that your school has set up security restrictions or domain restrictions that limit what you can access. So in that case, I encourage you to access the drive from a personal email and preferably a Google email if you have one. So if you don't use Google Drive too often, I want to show you a few things. You can view files by utilizing either the list view, which you see right now, or the grid view, and you can toggle between the two with this button in the top right. In the grid view, I'll open up a folder just so you can see. We'll start with the general assets folder. When you're in the grid view, you can see a preview of each of the files. And then when you're in list view, you can see more of the actual title or name of the file. So using either view is ultimately just a matter of personal preference. Within the Google Drive, there are several resources that you can edit and customize. And these are basically templates for you to change however you wish. So for instance, in the general assets folder, we have a 2022-23 calendar that's a Word document. You can edit this however you like. We do want to make sure that you're editing a file that has already been downloaded to your computer and that you're not directly editing the file that is in our Google Drive. So there are a few ways you can do this. You can right-click the file and then click download so that it's saved onto your personal computer. If you do not have Microsoft products and so you're not able to do that, another option is to open the file. And then once you have opened the file, you don't want to make edits directly in the file. You want to click File, Make a Copy. And then once you have made a copy, you want to make sure you're placing it in one of your personal folders. So clicking back to one of your Google Drive folders and not editing it within our Google Drive folder. So that is one example of a resource that you can edit and customize yourself. In the general folder, you'll find resources that aren't necessarily related to one of the three campaign components. So for instance, you'll find our campaign timeline here. This lays out all of the major events throughout the year in one place. So you'll see we're starting off with our planning process during August, September, leading up to Why Apply Day on September 16th. And then it lays out all of the remaining deadlines and big events throughout the year. Definitely recommend having that handy in your office somewhere or just going ahead and adding all those dates to your personal calendar. We also have in this help desk folder some graphics that you can use to promote our help desk on social media. If you don't know, our help desk is both a phone and text line that students and families can contact with questions about any part of the college planning process, really. And so you're more than welcome to share these graphics on social media so that students know our help desk is available to them. And we'll show you this graphic once more towards the end of the webinar. While we're in this general folder, I definitely want to point out our Common Black College Application FAQ. All Alabama students can apply to over 60 historically Black colleges and universities at absolutely no cost to them, thanks to an amazing partnership we have with Regions Foundation. So they can apply by using the Common Black College application and entering a promo code that will essentially waive the application fee. This opportunity is available all year, so please, please, please promote the opportunity to your students who are interested in HBCUs. So let's go back to our main page with all of the toolkit folders. In Google Drive, if you want to get back to a different folder, you can click the top up here and click that name to get back to the landing page. So we're back on our landing page, and now we can dive into our Cash for College folder. So we segmented the resources into folders by category. So under general, you'll find an overview of the campaign component, as well as some examples of initiatives that high schools have implemented. So any initiative related to financial aid. For those of you who work with immigrant families, I wanted to mention that we have a resource specifically for undocumented families. Like I had mentioned earlier, we also strongly encourage you to refer those students to our help desk if you need any further assistance addressing their circumstances. So that's the general folder under Cash for College. Now we can go to the planning folder. Under planning, you can find all kinds of planning resources like a planning calendar, worksheets, email templates for parents and families. We also have a lesson plan right here that ties federal financial aid to government and econ classes. So that can definitely be handy. I also want to point out towards the beginning of the year, but before the Fafsa cycle even begins, what we're focusing on is creating Students Fsa Ids, which are just a username and password for their Fafsa. So we have this worksheet with lots of tips on how to do this correctly. And this worksheet also warns you of some new features on the Federal Student Aid website that we do not recommend students use, like the personal identifiers option right here. We're definitely going to talk a lot more about this during our FAFSA related webinars, but I wanted to go ahead and put the FSA ID worksheet on your radar so that students can already have that created well in advance of October 1st. All right, so moving out of our planning folder, we'll go to our digital assets folder. Here you'll find all kinds of graphics to promote your school's efforts or to just promote financial aid in general, whether you want to do that on social media or in your school's newsletters. If your school or district has a Facebook page, these graphics would definitely be great to add to any of your posts just to build awareness, hopefully get people asking questions and wanting to get started on their application. So all kinds of graphics here. Going back out to our print assets. Here you can just find postcards to pass out, signs to hang around school. So we have flyers, flow charts. Here we have some really helpful flow charts to explain complicated things like dependency determinations and parent determinations, which are things that usually trip people up when it comes to the FAFSA. And then under press, we have a press release template. So you can use that to announce your school's efforts, especially if you're hosting a really large event and you want people to be aware. You can promote that through a press release. And then we also have a new folder this year, a data folder. Like I had mentioned earlier today, we now have a guide to using the AIC FAFSA completion portal. And then we also have a couple helpful resources for navigating through the Cash for College dashboard. So that is our Cash for College folder. I'm going to return to our landing page and now go to Alabama College Application Week. You'll see that we have almost the same categories of folders under this component as well. For Alabama College Application Week, we have a ton of digital assets that you can share on social media up to Why Apply Day, as well as through College Application Week. And then you might have seen in our newsletter this morning that outside of our Google Drive, we also have some Canva templates that you can customize for social media posts. So if you want to revisit our newsletter, you can find a direct link to a Canva template that you can make completely custom to your school. and promote things like Why Apply Day and Alabama College Application Week. One new thing we have is our handout for building a balanced college list. I think this would be a great thing for seniors to get started on in the early months of their senior year. Okay, one folder that we have under this component that we didn't have under Cash for College is volunteers and influencers. So here is where you'll find email and letter templates for getting volunteers, sponsors, and any kind of local leader to attend or support your event. There is a sample mayoral proclamation that you can use to promote College Application Week. And then there's also a template for recruiting volunteers to assist any kind of workshop that you're hosting on campus, as well as just a sample thank you letter or thank you social media post that you can use to show appreciation for your volunteers. So now we're just doing a high level overview today, but of course you can look through all of these on your own and send us any questions you might have. But I want to finish up the demo by showing College and Career Decision Day. So again, same kind of setup here with the categories of folders. All of these resources are going to be focused on ways you can celebrate your seniors' decisions. And then to support your events that you'll be planning for May 1st or any time in the month of May. So in the general folder, we have an overview of the day. It's our one pager. So these are just things you can print out, hang around the school if you like. And in our planning folder, we have a social media guide. This will give you hashtags, sample text that you can use for any kind of Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram post that you're creating to celebrate your seniors. Obviously, there's much more within this folder. We will definitely cover that in future webinars, especially as we get closer to the dates of these big events. But these are the kinds of resources that you can expect to find in each of these three components. And now I wanted to mention that we will have new versions of our Educator's Handbook and then our Student and Families Guidebook. Those will be available hopefully later this week. As soon as they are available, we'll make sure they're in the general asset folder of the Google Drive. And then we'll also make sure to send them out in our newsletter as well. So I know we covered a whole bunch, but I wanted to wrap up with a few tips just to guide the next few months that we have ahead of us. The first being tips for community partners. So I know we spend a lot of time addressing educators, but we also want to recognize the wonderful community partners that we have on Zoom with us. So we know that a lot of these community partners are really key in this work that we do. So we encourage y'all to connect with new counselors and career coaches that are in your service area. Go ahead and reach out to them. We know how important those relationships are. And then we encourage y'all to send us your upcoming events so that we can promote them on social media or in our newsletter, whatever is most appropriate, depending on the style or type of event. You can send any of those to algoes2college@alabamapossible.org. So just a few more tips for post-secondary institutions. Y'all always do a really wonderful job of providing your insight and expertise at all kinds of workshops. So tons of high schools will host, admissions and financial aid workshops, and y'all are such important partners at those types of events. And then for our community-based organizations, if y'all are supporting high school seniors, we definitely encourage you to attend our upcoming Fafsa training, both for a refresher and just for some extra tips on how to support the application process. And then any chance that you are available and can volunteer to support high school workshops, we definitely recommend that you also reach out to counselors and career coaches in your area of the state and see how you can support those. We also know it can be really helpful when community-based organizations offer their space up as a site for college planning activities. It's super successful for events to be hosted on high school campuses, but we know sometimes students and families might feel more comfortable in a community space outside of school. So seeing what works for your specific area of the state and offering up your space if you're able to do so. So now I would like to turn it over to an educator to offer some of her ideas on the upcoming year. We have Tori Adams, who's a counselor at Andalusia High School. And last year, her school was the winner of the School of Excellence. So that's an award given to a school that serves as an exemplary model for their state's college application campaign. And I noticed that one of the attendees today asked for tips from educators with large senior classes, and Tori definitely serves quite a large senior class, so she'll be the perfect person to offer her insight, and I'm really excited to hear what she has in store. So I will turn it over to Tori now.
Hey, everybody. I will say this. My previous position, I was in a very small school. We only had like 30 seniors. And then I came to Andalusia where there were 135 plus seniors. So servicing a larger population is unique. But as I told you guys before, the lady in the photo with me in the blue dress, that's Miss Thompson. She is a hero around here. She's the guidance aide, but she's so much more. She's a veteran teacher, and she really helped with organizing this event and making it possible. And because she's taught here for so long, she was able to help reach those students a little more effectively. I'll say for us, we have homerooms, and that seems to be the best way to reach our students. We can pull them into, the auditorium during those times where we won't be pulling them from so much class time. And we also really communicate with the teachers. Teachers appreciate when you let them know when the students will be missing class. And so as long as we communicated up front, that was also very beneficial, just saying, hey, this week we'll be pulling these students. And we worked with teachers who we knew would be more understanding of us pulling kids from those classes. But I also wanted to say, Lauren Maynard is going to really appreciate this. She's also on our on this Zoom meeting as well, and she's our new career coach. Last year, we shared a career coach, and she was also wonderful. Her name was Kelsey Scruggs, and she helped us a lot. She just had started the position last year, but we had a great team. That's what I was going to say. Is we had a great team who worked with us. It wasn't just us, but the teachers helped a lot. As well. And so if you have a bigger student population, I would say really use any resource you can, especially if you have those college and career coaches that can step in and help as well. And that's it. I was just going to, in our flyer that's on here, I'm sorry, I meant to mention that too. This year, our theme is a magical experience. And so we're hoping that we can get our students excited about applying to college, because it certainly is a magical experience, and we're hoping to make their dreams come true. So, just using that theme to try to get everybody thinking about college early. And one thing we did mention last year is that because we had so many students applying to college early, we really saw our scholarship numbers go up. And that was wonderful. Now that was a bigger class, and we had, it's going to be a different dynamic this year, but I do believe that applying early to college is significant, and that it really gets students motivated and thinking about where I'm going to go, and thinking about applying for those scholarships as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tori, and especially in the middle of your busy day. Thank you for joining us and sharing that.
I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can be of any help.
Great. Yeah, we'll have a moment for Q&A towards the end, but what I really took from that is you're starting by setting a positive tone with this really wonderful theme and focusing on all the benefits of applying to post-secondary education rather than focusing on all the stressful parts of it. So starting off with this really positive tone, and then really leaning into those partners. For schools that have quite a large senior class, partnerships absolutely key. So we have those post-secondary institutions and those community organizations on the call. Ask them for assistance whenever you need. They're such critical components of supporting this work. And I think that's something that Tori really displays, is how well she can partner with folks. And then also utilizing the most convenient time for teachers who are working with these seniors daily. So finding out what works for your specific setting is definitely a good tip. So thank you, Tori. So now we have that time for questions. If you haven't yet asked a question in the chat, feel free to do so now. And Sandra, I'll invite you to come on and read any questions we might already have.
Thank you, May. Good morning, everyone. We had about 4 questions to come into the chat. The first one is, can undocumented students fill out the FAFSA anyway to be eligible for scholarships offered by the college?
So I will say it is going to be very dependent on the student's specific circumstances, which is a very frustrating answer, but it really does depend on their specific circumstances. In general, an undocumented student who does not have a social security number will not be able to apply for federal student aid. Now, they are able to apply to other types of aid. There are several scholarships that are specifically for that population and that do not ask for any kind of citizenship information. So we definitely want to promote those scholarship opportunities that are available, but also knowing that a student who is undocumented might be what we called documented, meaning they have DACA or deferred action for childhood arrivals. Those students in some instances have social security numbers. And so we just highly recommend for students who are either undocumented themselves or have parents who are undocumented that you refer them to us. We also have great partners who assist in this work, and we can definitely point them in the right direction as it relates to applying to college and applying for financial aid. So definitely feel free to use us as a resource.
Thank you, May. Our next question was answered, I believe, in the chat, but I'll go ahead and pose it. How do I get login credentials for the FAFSA portal? And May, you may want to expound on it.
Sure. So what first has to happen to get login credentials is that your district must sign a use agreement. For most districts across the state of Alabama, they have already signed a use agreement. So that's great news. If you don't yet have a login to the portal, all you'll need is for your district's local access manager to submit some information so that you can be given credentials. All of these instructions are contained in our new guide that we created. So if you are in our Cash for College folder and you go to the data subfolder, you will find that guide, and it addresses all kinds of questions related to the portal. But essentially, each school district has what's called a local access manager. That person can create accounts for educators so that they can have a username and password to access that student level data. Yeah, if you look at the guide and you still have questions, feel free to reach out to us instantly. We would be happy to answer those.
Thank you, May. I think what actually was put in the chat was an email address, so my apologies.
Oh, okay.
So the third question is, can you send the spreadsheet with participating colleges ASAP because students are trying to decide if they need to apply now? I think you briefly touched on that question as well.
I think in past years that spreadsheet has come out rather late, and I think our hope is that it doesn't come out as late this year. So I'm hoping earlier in October, but I don't know that we will have it prior to that. If we have it earlier, we'll definitely keep you updated. And that's something that we can talk about in our webinar that will be specifically focused on Alabama College Application Week. That webinar you'll see on a slide coming up, but it will take place on September 21st. So hope to have the answers for you by that date, September 21st, which will be about a month in advance of the actual week.
Okay, great. The last question, I believe it was answered somewhat during the presentation. Will you send out a flyer to use for the Why Apply Day?
Yeah, so in our newsletter today, we had a Canva link. That is something that you can use for social media posts, but we'll also have more resources related to why apply. And if you visit, we'll send out these slides once the webinar concludes. But if you go back to the slide on that has information about why apply day, it links you to the American College Application Campaign, and they have so many resources for why apply. So they already have some flyers that you can use to spread the word around your school.
Okay, great. Thanks, May. Those were all the, well, no, there's one more. Is there anything else we need to do to get the professional development credit?
Yes, we will cover that on our next slides.
A comment from Angela in reference to the portal. She said that her biggest challenge is the data collection part. 494 seniors, proof that each and every one applied, etc. So I didn't know if you wanted to comment on that.
So there are going to be several improvements to the portal this year, and we'll talk about this in more detail in future webinars. But one of those will be that the portal will actually be updated to reflect whenever a student has either completed an opt-out waiver by themselves or has had an opt-out waiver completed on their behalf. So if the student has an opt-out waiver on file, that will be reflected in the AIC portal so that you're able to not only track, a student's Fafsa status, but also which students in your cohort have completed a waiver. So you can see all of that in one place. But I understand that having such a large senior class, you're managing a huge number of students and monitoring their FAFSA completion. This is when I'd really encourage you to create some kind of system, whether it's with your counselors and career coaches or whatever works best for your school, where maybe you have one person pulling all of the data. And by that, I mean exporting spreadsheets that have all of the students' FAFSA completion statuses. And then you delegate a number of the students to one person, a number of the students to another person, and you're all doing outreach together so that it doesn't feel like such a huge burden. But I realize with large senior classes, it's still really difficult. So any way we can support you, please reach out.
Okay, she had another comment, and she's actually good with the FAFSA portal, but the data, whether they've applied to college, sent in their transcripts, paid the application fee, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, I see. For
Right.
every single part of
Yeah.
college application, right? Yeah. I've seen educators do all kinds of creative strategies for this. Some will have a live Google sheet, and as their students complete each task, so you have a task in each column, as students complete each task, they'll mark it in the Google sheet. So I don't know if that would work for you, but things like that and having a mid-year survey or a survey every quarter or so, where you're gauging students where they are in the application process, that would be another recommendation I have, but recognizing it's really difficult.
Those were all the questions and comments. So
Awesome.
thank you, May.
All right, so here are our dates for upcoming events, and we just want to mention some in the next month or so. So there is an Alabama School Counselor Association virtual learning series that'll take place on Friday, September 16th. Like I mentioned, our Alabama College Application Campaign webinar will be Wednesday, September 21st. So I'm glad Wednesday worked so well for all of you. And then we have our Cash for College FAFSA 101 webinar. That will be Wednesday, September 28th. I want to give y'all a heads up here. That webinar tends to be a bit lengthy, around an hour and a half. So go ahead and block off an hour and a half because we really want to cover lots of information and make sure you feel prepared for the upcoming FAFSA cycle. So once you get the slides, you'll have all of the registration links for those events. Lastly, we have our first community building conversation. That'll be Thursday, September 29th. If you never attended one of those before, basically what they are Zoom sessions for educators and any kind of community leader to just log on and have the opportunity to connect with each other about different topics related to supporting students. So they're pretty casual conversations. They're really meant to just be an opportunity for you to talk, to generate ideas, to ask each other questions, get advice, or just share your experiences, say what's going well, what's going badly, how things can get better. It's a time for us to really just be in each other's presence and learn more from each other. So I hope y'all can attend that. We'll have a registration link for that a little bit later. So like we mentioned, for professional development credit, we will just have a brief poll to complete. On the next slide, we're going to have information about how you actually claim the credit. You do so through a link that we have available and by entering in a course number and a section number. And so we'll have that on the next slide. But that information is also always posted on our events webpage. So it's alabamapossible.org/events. We'll always have the professional development credit information under each event. We'll have it in our follow-up email too. So here's the professional development credit. You'll visit this link, it will be in our follow-up email, and then you'll enter course number 295839 and then section number 453840. And you have to do this registration process in order to receive the credit. So please don't forget. Just want to end off with a few ways to keep connected with us. We have our help desk. We'll answer any question related to college planning, admissions, financial aid. You can reach us at 334-316-6155. You can reach us specifically during weekdays and during business hours on those weekdays. But definitely feel free to send your students our way with the help desk. You can also find us at AL Goes to College on social media platforms. And that's it. I know we've run a little bit over, so thank you for your time and thank you for staying on. Definitely stay connected with us. You can go to alabamagoestocollege.org and you can also email us algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org. We definitely would love to stay in touch. We will of course be sending out our newsletter to stay updated on upcoming events and really anything important related to post-secondary pathways. So we look forward to keeping up with you there. All right, that concludes our webinar today. Thank you so much for your time.